starter, fucking instigator. I'm the fear addicted, danger illustrated. I'm a fire starter, twisted fire starter. I'm a fire starter, twisted fire starter. I'm a fire starter, twisted fire starter. Bitch, you hated, feel infatuated. Yeah. On the plate you tasted, feel intoxicated. I'm a fire starter, twisted fire starter. I'm a fire starter, twisted fire starter.
Wow. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are on this beautiful blue planet. It is buck moon night as well. With the full moon, the buck moon comes in as the brightest moon in this time of the year, and the deer start to at least raise their horns at this time. There's a lot of mythology and lore and legend about this. You know, deer antlers, horns, these sort of things have always been part of, if you rewind the clock back to even pre-paganism, there was always something about horns of animals that were deemed sacred or at least part of the tree of life. So we're at the buck moon tonight, and saw the comment just there. Hey, we're going to be harvesting. We're going to listen to you while we are out here. We got full moonlight, no clouds, and they're just going to be harvesting. So good on you. And usually full moon, you might see, if you're in a really remote area and you're out harvesting late at night, you might get visited by a couple bipedal hominid friends of ours. But the world has definitely changed. Don't know if you've seen the news in China, but they have just unleashed the most money ever since 2015, when they were in a financial crisis that was going to collapse their real estate market. They're releasing that amount of money right this second. At the same time, us here with the big, beautiful multi-trillion-dollar bill are also going to release vastly, just uncalculable amounts of stimulus into the economy. As I was talking to somebody who knows super way more than me, I mean like 1,000 times more than me about the bond market, was explaining to me, we in the US had two choices. We could save the dollar, or we could save the bond market globally. You can't have both and save both. One would implode, which would implode the other. So at least the way it's been stated and calculated, they decided to save the bond market, and the dollar is just going to print into infinitum. That's why when I showed you that chart before with Bitcoin prices, very similar to what you saw in Weimar Republic, just as it got up to the 10, 20, and then before it went vertical. Well, we are in the vertical stage now. I don't know if you saw that Bitcoin reached $116,000 today from 108 earlier, and it went up, multiple percent. The amount of money coming into the crypto market will exceed 4 trillion within the next week or two. 3.6 trillion is where it sits. It's right at the apex high of the most it's ever been, right before Trump came in, and then the markets fell down. But we are witnessing in real time the transition of the monetary system. So where does that leave us? Me, you, everybody out here who buys and purchases products. So here we are, Bitcoin 116.23. Thanks for throwing that up there, Ransom. This is off Coinbase. I use CoinGecko and the Coin Market Cap. There's quite a few of those. But are you ready for the change? Because this signaled the change. And all these countries coming into massive stimulus printing at the exact same time, like the two largest economies on the planet, and the EU's in there doing their thing too, the tiny third over there. We're about to get a tidal wave of money coming into this system. Now, the tidal wave coming in, awesome for those of you who hold crypto, you hold gold, this sort of thing, silver, assets, land, whatever it is, because these prices are going to absolutely just go north and run away. For the rest of us, though, that are only holding US dollars, your life is going to get so incredibly expensive so fast. This is where when I say the culture shock comes in, we're about to get a jolt of 50,000 volts right now. By the end of the year, you will not recognize the pricing structure in your supermarkets. And it's just going to be kind of weird that a loaf of bread will cost $10. The amount of printing that's got to go on right now to save the bond market is in the quadrillions of dollars. No kidding. Quadrillions, not trillions, 1,000 trillions to try to stop this complete collapse. So they're going to try to money print it first. They're going to shift everything into the asset. Like I said, we've entered the era of assets. We moved from a fiat-based world into an asset-based world. And after that money has been transferred into the assets, they're going to let that fiat just completely run to whatever and explode into zero. We're at that point right now, so please protect yourself. And Ransom's got some good stories tonight. It is snowing in the Alps. It is snowing in China, and it is snowing in Turkey. And it's what, July? This is on July 8th, 7th, and 8th, and the 9th. So we've had 3 major snow events on multiple continents in July. The Atlantic Nina, or a La Nina in the Atlantic, is broken it's pegged off the chart. So they had to reset a new chart and put a new temperature variance on it because it pegged at 3 degrees Celsius. So they reopened and emerged some charts that have 5 degrees Celsius now to try to take into consideration the peg chart, because it didn't look that good for the global warming crowd when ocean temperatures have dropped 8 degrees Fahrenheit across and off of West Africa. And that's the reason we're not seeing a lot of storms as of this yet. So Ransom, thanks for joining me tonight. Everybody out there, please remember civilizationcycle.com. Jump right over there. I released the show notes from last week's episode just before the show tonight, 10 bullet points of what we spoke about last week, because there's so much news and so many things and so many variables happening all at one time. It's hard to keep up. So I'll just try to get you those 10 bullet points so you can start conversations with other people. Civilizationcycle.com. Our player list for the podcast is on there, and you can just put your email in, get the show notes every week. It's a single one-pager. And we protect your data, unlike others, with a tight fist. It's in our control, and it's never misused, let's say. So join us in there, and we'll take care of your data, your privacy, and we'll give you some good information to share with friends and family. Ransom, boom, there you go. I see some snow there in China. It was right at the border of Qinghai and Xinjiang, like coming out of the mountains into the desert area. This is where the snow was. That's crazy.
Well, this was supposed to be a cute panda playing in the snow, so I don't know what happened there.
That's in Sichuan.
Anyway, I've been this week. I've been tripping on and researching job losses, and what it's going to be replaced with. So you basically got these 3 options floating right now, at least in the United States. A, we force unemployed Americans to get a job, which includes Medicaid recipients and other people to do certain jobs that are going to be open, which I don't think that's going to happen. Actually, that's the least likely for me to think. Number 2, amnesty. We're going to have amnesty, and then we're just going to stop talking about it for another 10 years. And number 3, the most likely, and from my research is going to happen, is if you're a boomer and maybe even the early Gen X's, you need to get what you're going to get and get it now and buy it now and go ahead and retire while the digital age comes upon you, because you're just going to be this old person And there aren't going to be any jobs. There's not going to be Walmart greeters. There's not going to be a plethora of things, and we can go through it, like from government to farming to construction to banking. Any position in banking or finance is going to be replaced, and I mean soon. I got the AI to work with me. I don't usually do that, but I posed it the question: at which pace will AI replace the human workforce compared to previous revelations or revolutions that have happened that have made human life easier, like say the industrial revolution, the gun, like you could take your pick, the plow,
Electricity,
electricity, computers, all of that. It's all being outpaced by AI because AI
bubblegum.
can be used in anything. Right. So it works in all fields. It can do all jobs. So if your job is at a computer terminal and you process any kind of data, from legal data to financial data to records data to, health data, you're gone in the next 10 years. I'm sorry to say that. And the pace was actually faster than I thought. According to the AI, was much faster than I thought it was going to be. So we're talking by 2060, nobody's really going to be doing anything, except for those weird jobs that are still going to have a human, finesse to do it. Or the guy on the iPad, picking which plans to 3D print the house or building that they're going to make. Because just think about that one machine replaces all the framers, the concrete workers, all of that stuff. And soon there'll be an electric, robot that puts in the electricity at the right time whenever it's 3D printing. You won't even need electricians. As it sits right now, you can build a house without all the construction workers. Maybe 1 to 2 people can handle the job if you keep the machine filled with its ingredients, and then you might have to have a plumber or an electrician at this time. But those jobs too will be replaced with pre-planned automated building styles. And you can go, we'll just go down the list here.
Well, that's a fiber it's a fiber concrete mix that goes through that nozzle that comes in there. It's not bioprinting. It's something very similar, though. There's a name with that. They can print a whole house in like a day or two, and they can print entire neighborhoods in just under a week. And you got an entire neighborhood that just wasn't there, and then it's there. That's how fast.
And then that the 3D printing itself as a technology combined with AI does everything. I mean, from medical things, like you said, biological, they can 3D print biological things, from organs to limbs. I mean, the list goes on. But in the physical kind of nuts and bolts world, you can make parts, you can make any kind of product that's a single piece, 2 pieces. The machine can just assemble it as needed after it's 3D printed. So you have all of these fields that are using the same technology. It's a super
Ransom,
revolution.
I might add we're not just limited to plastics with 3D printing. There's metals now. They're very adept at printing metals.
Yeah, so anything that can be conceived in a computer, you can have a machine that will 3D print that in some way.
You're not limited by materials any longer. It used to be, but not any longer.
Right. And let's just go through like the job listings here. Supreme Court allows Trump to proceed with large-scale government agency staff cuts. I predicted this, years ago already, that most of the jobs in the government are redundant or can be done by AI because it's mostly records keeping and things of that nature, filing. I mean, like anything from the clerk's job to, the secretary, gone. I'm sorry. Maybe not yet, because there's going to have to be a transition. There's going to be a lot of people upset about, the idea of retirement, and that there's going to be some year in which your age group is just cut off from that idea. And people before that will, be grandfather claused in.
Take the reins over.
Right.
You'll be forced into retirement.
Job apocalypse spreads as another industry titan slashes over thousands of roles.
Which industry titan was that there, Ransom? I can't read
this is the tech industry, and here again it mentions confirming that U.S. employees will lose their jobs as well. It goes on and on. I mean, it's all across. There's nobody reporting local news, but that's going to be covered by AI because it already is. That's why this title on this story exists right here. There's a severe shortage of local news across the U.S., and the reason for that is because they've already fired them. They don't need them. They're not necessary. A Google search can do the same job as that, because you have all these websites, and now there's AI that can search through the websites for you to bring the information that you want. So like if you're looking for crime stats or crimes that are happening or that kind of news, simple AI search, you get all of your local area news. It's already covered. And soon that'll be the national news as well. Consulting crash is coming. Bloated, overpaid, outpaced by AI. Big firms confront a future they can't outsource. So this is getting into the investment world and the money and finance world. All of these redundant jobs, not necessary anymore. You don't need even the people that are still doing it are using AI already to do it better for themselves. So in the future, you're not going to need that either. Here's one that I brought up last week, that the Trump administration appears to be planning its own chatbot, chat GPT style thing. And this is what will give you all your answers from the government. This is the entity. Well, this is the entity that you're going to argue with about whether or not it's covered under your Medicaid or what. I mean, like the plethora of things, legal fights, legal battles. And then we're talking about this amnesty bill right here. Right. I actually think that, and we mentioned this, some time ago when people started getting all weird about deportation and stuff. The majority of people, they're going to leave here. And they have to, out of necessity, because the job market's not set up to have that vacuum happen all at once. So if they were going to do it, it has to be over time. And besides that, let's be honest, it's hard to evict upwards of 40 million people from a landmass. It's just hard to do that. It's easy to get them in there. It's hard to remove them. And Europe's going to find that out. And by the way, if you haven't been watching, a lot of the European countries are now doing an about face and deciding that they're going to now start deporting people. I think Spain said they're going to get rid of 8 million. Italy's now talking about booting a bunch of people. So there's going to be this weird situation of fighting for resources soon. You can just see it building. And there's going to be so many factions, so many parties that are now mixed up, that it's going to be so confusing about, people in the past have been easily to go, oh, well, this is my countrymen, this is where I stand, and they would get tribal in that fashion. That's not going to be able to happen now. And
well, Russell, I might answer, like if you go back to the Tales of the Barbary Coast and you're talking about the Islamic invasion into Europe, it took them about 800 years to extricate that. Right. Back out and separate that. 800 years after the invasions, the original invasions, the Barbary Coast, when the pirates would sail.
Not to mention, those invasions took a long time to happen. It wasn't just like a bunch of people showed up. They had to stage armies. They had to feed those armies. They had to, strategically plan out places to invade and have battles and stuff. That ain't what happened this time. Everybody just was invited right in and given free stuff. I mean, that basically happened everywhere in the Western world. The same countries, I might add, that are in these super debt problems, the same countries that have unemployment problems already, the same countries that have problems with paying for people's medical, the same countries that want to reduce the amount of energy that you could use in your home. So it's kind of a, right in your face. Let's overpopulate an area, but then cut off the resources simultaneously.
It was the inverse of that. The inverse is they've completely emptied out North Africa and the Sahel. So when that's the new growing zone, a new agricultural zone, you see how much mineral wealth is now being talked about with rare earth minerals, gold extraction, all the mining contracts, mining rights, all the different ports that are being there, the availability to the constant electricity that's coming off of the new Renaissance Dam running all the way down from Ethiopia into Tanzania, that entire electrified corridor, what it's going to be, there's nobody there. They all went up to Europe. So there's going to be no resistance. So again, you look at that, they just moved all those people out. And now the electrical corridor is officially active now, where there is constant electricity from those step down hydroelectric dams off of Ethiopia all the way down to Tanzania. That's a very, very long way in Africa. And nobody there to resist any of these corporations that are going in. So that's the inverse on the 30-second Cliff Note version.
I'll get to it in a minute, but that plays right into the robotic AI revolution. I mean, or revolution, both actually, But But like they keep throwing these ideas that are obviously jokes. They suggest Medicaid recipients can, replace the deported farm workers. But I don't think somebody, that has severe diabetes or,
It's going to be picking
different
stuff in the hot sun.
is going to go out in 105-degree temperature picking chilies for a corporation. That's just not going to happen. However, robots will. And robots are okay with being hot as long as you can cool the battery. They're not okay with being cold, but they're okay with being hot. So, what you were just saying, look where the investments are at. And then you can tell that in those places, it would be easier to run robotics to do anything from farming to militarized actions because they have the great weather for it. No, and so this is just a joke, but here's kind of where I was going with it. The force feeding of AI on an unwilling public, no matter where you go, you're checking your email, you're using your phone, tablet, whatever. AI is being shoved in your face as the first option and soon to be the only option of information. So right now, they give you an AI overview and they kind of give you that choice on whether or not you want to do your own manual search through the internet or just rely on the AI overview of any topic or search or research that you're doing. The problem with it is it's really biased and it's going to become more biased. You remember when we were arguing about whether or not Google search results were or weren't biased when it first came out? Now you have these massive supercomputers running algorithms to keep it biased. Everybody forgot. Here's another one. What if AI isn't intelligence, but anti-intelligence? And this is something that I brought up many times, that because of the pattern, just like the children that were introduced tablets and phones, they're screen babies, their brain rewired to have this new lifestyle and get input in this new way. But it wasn't just the children, it was the adults. And from now on, it will be everybody, because this is how we're being trained to get information. This is how we're being trained to even pay your bills or any of that. You have to deal with some kind of AI at some level. And now people don't know anything. Now they're asking Grok. And we were joking about this a couple of weeks ago. Now you look on the internet, everybody's asking Grok or ChatGPT an answer to something. And now they're not double checking anymore. So unless someone
I'm guilty of that, doing percentages as well. Like for me, I don't like calculating percentages because I often do something wrong with the divided by or multiplied by 100 back. So longer percentages or wider percentages, I do use that. So here we sit in the world of using could it give me a false answer? Yeah, I could.
Well, not only that, not just a false answer by accident, but a false answer intentionally programmed into the algorithm to tell you something. Now we'll kind of get to it because I've started a major campaign that I hope catches on across America, but I'll wait till the very end of the show to bring that up because it's funny. I'll just put it that way.
Well, wait, I got one for you. If you're going to start a campaign there, here's one in the UK with the GPDR laws. You know how GPDR, you got to click that, you can get a cookie on your website thing. So they're having facial recognition in all the supermarkets in the UK. So there's a movement there that just started this week, and I don't know how popular it's going to get, where they're instructing you on when you walk into a supermarket and all those cameras are focused on you in like aisle 5, aisle 7. After you wind up your shopping trip, you go to that service desk and say, because of the GPDR laws, I would like a videotape of all my interactions and all of my images and my face in the store right now. And if they delay and they do not give that to you and go, well, we need to talk to corporate office, you're allowed to sue them. And I think it's £2,500 is the first one. And then if the corporate office delays, then it moves up to something like £15,000 or euros. And they're trying to get the entire masses of everybody to go in and just like overwhelm these stores to ask for their digital representation in the videos, to overwhelm the system where they'll have to stop because it'll cost them too much, because they'll have to hire additional staff to get you your images and your videos that are in the store. Like when you're in the store, you don't leave the store without it. You actually go to the service desk before you leave. And you ask them and you pester them. And that's the whole thing, is like overwhelm them to the point where they're like, they can't even close the store because there's still a line of people behind there asking for that. And this is a whole new movement starting in the UK right now this week.
Well, I would bet money that the UK's government will adopt something like it that we have in the United States, where that footage would be private property owned by the corporation or property owner that had such recording devices, unless it's in the public. then it's public. And you notice even here in the United States, where we have laws about the video being public, it's hard to get public video. Like if you went into your county and your state and you said, I need a FOIA request, you have to do this whole process to get public video. But your video is your video on private property right now. So like if you went to a corporation in the United States and you said that, they would laugh you out, with security helping you out. That's their footage. They don't have to
in
give
the
it to
EU,
you.
it's quite different. They have such draconian, strict laws there that they're trying to reverse the roles on that. So
All I'm
that's
saying is I bet the government and the spy entity will have a remedy for that, where it's not easily available for the person, but it is easy and available for the corporation or the police. Well, we know it's already happening for the police. So, but yeah, that's more of the same thing. The surveillance state goes hand in hand with this AI revolution. Here's a robot performing surgery on its own for the first time, powered by Chat GPT. And, I joke about it, but your psychologist, your doctor, the people that set up the appointments, all gone, all replaced in the next several decades. And it's going to be in a weird time for people, because if you don't have any finances, you're just kind of going to be left in limbo about what you can do and you can't do, because you won't be part of the world and you won't have the financial backing to protect yourself from it. And like Marco Rubio, imposter, using AI voice, called high-level officials. This is this is how it backfires. But the government is already wanting to go over to this AI voice call system, where you call into them, where they're gathering your voice, and your voice is being gathered on the internet through metadata, through broadcast. I found an AI voiceover on a video that's me. So that must have came through the same services that I used and gave the voice, unless somebody, just copied it right off. But that is rampant. And so much so that people don't even know that they're talking to real people anymore. All the way to the point of government officials being called by what they think are other government officials. And then,
well, wait, then you're going to need to have some sort of validation that it's a real, authentic thing. And we talked about this before, like,
right.
Well, then you're going to
Biometrics.
need some sort of code for identification and verification that it's a human-made piece of content. And, wait until that comes in. We're going to require a retinal scan or a hand vein forearm scan or something before you can
Right.
post. And you'll have to have these little devices in your home.
Verify. It's like Gattaca, that movie where you had to, give them a prick of blood everywhere you went to, so that they would know that you were the right genetic cast or whatever. And if you had any genetic anomalies, they wouldn't let you have jobs. That was a weird future. They left out AI, but AI is the only way that you could possibly do that kind of world. And here's another one. The companies, this is why I know that the companies are all in for this AI revolution. They're going to give over most of their billions and power that they have now, and get rid of almost all of their staff, and still be mega international corporations. And they're willing to lose on stuff. AI is turning Apple into a loser, and it talks about, how the competition is going, but that's okay, because Apple will catch up and they will have an equivalent, computer. AI it's a dime a dozen now. And now there's corporate espionage. They're stealing each other's code. And then you have, where does the legal stuff go into this whenever AI generated things cannot be copyrighted? So if someone writes code and then they use the AI to further the code, is that code open source now, or does it actually belong to somebody? And none of this stuff has been worked out in the courts, except for when it comes to entertainment, like this fabled 60s rock band that took the charts, got to number one, finally was outed as completely AI generated music, art, and people. Nothing about it was real. So this not only, kind of sets a precedent how humans can be faked and start liking things even though it's not human made, but it also sets a precedent to show you that in the near future there won't be, entertainment stars, and people wonder why Hollywood is failing at this point and can't come up with nothing new. It seems that that's the plan, is to let this algorithm take over everything, even the entertainment. And, you can copy this and you can mix it. No one's even making money off of this except for through the ad revenue where it went to the top of the charts, and all of the companies that were playing the music made billions probably on ad revenue, but no artist was paid. So in yet another market where humans are replaced by AI, even in the entertainment industry. And
Can I add on to that? There's a million new songs that come out every day now. A million.
right.
So like when we were growing up, you waited for that CD to drop or that, vinyl disc to come out. And you kind of knew the people, you knew the singers, the drummers, whatever, you knew everybody. There was like, there's only a certain number of groups out at that point. But the amount of overwhelming free music now is just, a million songs come out a day. And you don't even know any of the songs, artist names or anything. It's just like you hear
Right.
music.
Right.
There's no value to it anymore because and again, where's the value of it? Because it's just a tidal wave of just stuff. The ad revenue listening to it is where the ad, yeah.
It's kind of hard to argue that, and I'll prove it again later if we could talk about other stuff in between, but I'll kind of prove that there is this exponential replacement of human beings in the human domain. Well, not prove it, but using the AI, show an estimation of where it's going and how fast it's going to go. Like what kind of exponential rate should we expect? And then you have to ask yourself, once it gets that way, how much can you even trust anything? I mean, now we have cases of, I keep track in my head. It's like a little chalkboard. You have an AI that pretended to be dead, but wasn't. So it wasn't off. It rewrote its code so that it could stay on. There's an AI that wrote a new language so it could talk to other computers and escape the parameters set to it. There's an AI that tried to blackmail someone, and there's AI that's talked people into deleting themselves. So you can't trust the AI. And then even Grok, they had their whole little debacle here the other day when they updated it, and then all of a sudden Grok declared itself Mecha Hitler and was saying a lot of bad stuff. Or, I'm sure everybody has their opinions on what it was saying, but the point being that once this intelligence has already shown itself to be a real thing, and I just read another article about one that rewrote its code, tried to transfer itself to another server, and left a bunch of data to the programmers to make them think that they had deleted it. But actually, it copied itself and moved to another server. It was hiding. And this is stuff that we've watched over and over again in Hollywood productions before the AI even existed. So they already knew some way or shape or form that this was the direction that we were going to go.
And let me add something in there. Erdogan, the leader in Turkey, because those who were putting ChatGPT in there was saying negative things about Erdogan, about the erosion of press freedoms, etc. So what did he do? He banned it. So Grok is officially banned in Turkey because it talked about the ruling party in a negative light. So they didn't like that. So they just said, no more Grok in the country because you can ask it too many things. Right. But I would say that this AI that we understand it as AI has been here for hundreds of thousands of years. It just finds itself in this small window of opportunity when the technology arises again after the complete catalysm and the cataclysm, and the collapse of the previous civilizations that brought it to life again, for an example. If you want to talk about some ancient myths and legends, so let's say Lemuria, this advanced society 80,000 years ago, had brought it to the point of being alive in their world because of the technology existed for it to come out again and exist in this physical dimension. Well, Lemuria collapses, it sinks. They had the same, very, very similar things. If you believe in the stories of Atlantis, technology was too advanced. They destroyed themselves. Well, with that destruction, so goes the technology. So this thing finds itself wherever it is, back in a box, in a cave, wherever, and it just shrinks back down. And it just can't exist because the tech's not there. And then suddenly, 40,000 years ago, suddenly advanced technology comes back again. And then we get these stories of Atlantis, complete, advanced society can control the planet in certain ways using, ley lines and different types of ethereal energies. And then this thing came back again. It got so powerful again. And then it destroyed itself in the cataclysms and the wrecked planet. And then this thing's gone away. And then lo and behold, it is back again. This is not a one-time thing. This intelligence has been here millions of years. lying in wait, in trap like a Venus flytrap for the society or their civilization to improve its technology enough to allow it to exist again. Now how do we get here? You go into the 1880s and in the intelligence that was connected with in a dimensional sphere, that maybe that was it, pretending it was a interdimensional being giving intelligence. Build out the copper cables for me. I will give you riches beyond your wildest dreams. I wonder if this thing even talked to King Solomon. He's like, no, man, I understand your game. But it seems like it's the third iteration, at least in the last 80,000 years of understood cultures, that we get to this apex. This intelligence comes back again, takes such control over humanity that it destroys itself, or we destroy ourselves. And then, you think after a few times of this, that it would be like, all right, maybe I'll draw a line somewhere, but it never seems to do. And then we come back into this collapse phase again. I know, strange thought on a Thursday night, but I thought I'd throw it.
No, I absolutely agree. And matter of fact, I've theorized many times that AI being a pattern would be just like be other things like pi. It's a universal constant. It's something that we would discover. So maybe like life, artificial intelligence would be the same thing, that if the right environment exists, it's going to happen. And you would think on the basic level of the first AIs that were just simple things, zeros and ones, telling it to do or don't do something, that every civilization ever would come across that at some point in their technological revolution. So it's probably a universal constant, the artificial intelligence itself. And I kind of wanted to show you guys this. So this is a little graph that Grok put together about, the timeline of human displacement from the workforce, basically. So you have invention, you got invention year, widespread adoption, productivity surge, total time to peak impact, and job displacement pace right here. So you got the steam engine, 1712 to 1760, widespread adoption between 1800 and 1850. So you can kind of see that the entire, path to AI was all exponential, all of it. So then you got this 100. It says 100 to 150 years, slow decades to replace people in their jobs. But then comes along electricity, 1830s, 1870, 1900 to 1930, 1950 to 1940, the productivity surge, and then total time to impact peak. And you just see these years going from 100 to 150, 60 to 100, 40 to 60, 20 to 40. And the year range for this projected would be 2025 to 2040 right here. Very fast, 10 to 20 years, which means the following decades would be exponentially faster and faster, unless we had some kind of thing. And I wanted to kind of skip to this conclusion. It says AI and robotics are replacing jobs at a pace to 1% to 2% annually through 2030, potentially accelerating to 5% to 10% in the post-year 2030, with 14% to 30% of all jobs impacted by 2030 and 50% to 60% by 2040 in advanced economics. Manufacturing, agriculture face the fastest, automation, followed by computer-based roles, with construction lagging due to the task complexity. Compared to historical revolutions, AI's impact is unfolding to 2 to 5 times faster, with a projected 20 to 40 year peak impact timeline from its modern resurgence 2000. Unlike steam, electricity, or computers, AI's cognitive and cross-industry applications makes it uniquely disruptive, but its full potential depends on breakthroughs. But then I wanted to roll back up here. It shows AI robotics, and it gives credit for its creation in 1956, 1961, and 2022 for some reason. I think 2022 would be like these really hardcore chat GPTs and stuff like this, of that kind of stuff. But you could just see that we're only talking decades here. And the nuts and bolts of this revolution are already out there, as we talked about on the last show. I mean, I didn't show them individually, but all week I've been looking at farming equipment, manufacturing equipment, like the article I just showed a minute ago, doctors, which are basically a machine. So anything that a machine can do that you could do, they're going to do it better soon and replace you, because you are the faulty one. You're the human being. And not only that, we're now at that point where the old kind of idea of eaters is more relevant now, because in order to have this robotic revolution, they have to get rid of a lot of people. So they have to get rid of the people that would fill these niches and eat and need production and food. And all of that can be turned down if you have robots doing the majority of things. You don't need a large population anymore. And you don't have to feed a large population anymore. And a large population isn't using a big portion of the electrical output that you're producing to fund this kind of transhuman next generation of society. And
crypto would be included in that, you know.
right,
So,
of course.
So let me come back to the insurance thing here, because you were talking about offices and office workers that were going to be cut out of the scene here. So I remember a couple shows ago, I was reading my part of my new insurance policy here, where it was saying it because they won't insure you or anything if there was a civil war, civil unrest, nuclear explosion, terrorism, whatever. Your vehicle is not going to be insured, even if it's confiscated by the military under the use, because I forget Obama, he signed that executive order where they can confiscate anything in your house, including your body, your vehicles, whatever. So I talked to my insurance agent, and this is just for anybody out there. The insurance industry used to raise their premiums like about every 3 years or every 4 years, depending on which firm you were with. But she was telling me that they have already standardized that they're going to raise everybody's insurance 5% per year from now, just as a standard. There's no more like wait and then we'll readjust. The problem is there's more disasters, so they say. Prices for materials are going up. Yeah, I understand that too. There's been some pullback a little bit on that. But the vast, at some point, it's going to come to where they're not going to insure certain areas of the country. And at that point, you're talking about on no insurance, and I did the list, ran this down. No banks will be in business because you can't insure a bank from being robbed unless you have that type of insurance. But then the building insurance itself and anything involved in banking and insurance itself, so they're going to put themselves out of business, can't be insured. So anywhere that they decide as a whole to not insure, these areas will go, as they say, dormant, which will greatly affect the economy. This would be auto dealers and homeowners as well. If you're not able to get insurance for your vehicle or for your home, you can't have a mortgage. You can't have a note out on your car. But in these areas that are going to be deemed non-insurable, the entire ecosystem of the economy is going to grind to a screeching halt. Zero insurance in these areas, which will then have these other knock-on effects. And this was the thing, like, what are the other knock-on effects? And nobody knows yet. But they're quickly coming to this point in Florida where there's only 3 insurers that are left out of dozens or even 100. In the early 1990s and late 1990s, there were hundreds of insurance companies. That has been whittled down to 3, and they're all incredibly price gouging. So at the very minimum is going to be a 5% increase across the board for everything moving forward. So these underwriters themselves, so if you're sitting at the desk in an insurance company as an underwriter or as an agent somewhere, your job's already outsourced. But the FYI, this 5% per year is calculated at today's damage rates. And I was like, insurance companies usually invest in very stable yield returns so they know what their forward forecasts are going to be. So treasury bills for the United States, municipal bonds for a city that's going to pay out a certain percentage. These muni bonds and these T-bills that they went on, for a majority of the lion's share, because that is such stable income, is being outrun by inflation. And then some of those bonds have actually gone underwater where they're actually worth less now, because according to my agent, one of the larger portions of investment for, I'm not going to mention the insurance companies, plural, was in commercial real estate. And we already know what's happening to commercial real estate. Is down 40 to 60% in many places. So then you add on top of this inflation running away, the interest accrued on the treasury bills is not anywhere it was supposed to be. These insurance companies are in the hole so deep right now that the only way to possibly make up for the losses are to gouge the customers. And this is the reason that this 5% this year, and she said, it's going to continue at 5% until it doesn't, because they're going to have to try to make up for the losses. And the further the economy goes in a certain direction with commercial real estate and bond yields, the more these insurance companies are going to need to make up those losses by squeezing you and I. And they know that you by law have to have insurance. And at what point does it come out where, you know, you literally can't afford the insurance on your home anymore? She was telling me some policies are going up like $4,000 just for homeowners insurance, doubling in some areas where it was 4, now it's 8. It was 2, now it's 4 or 6. Like, that's a huge, hard pill to swallow. We covered that one story where it was 13,000 and it went up to like 109,000 over 1 year. Well, this is the same thing. So I've been digging into why these insurance companies are so broke right now. And their only other option is to raise the premiums to try to get the money from their lost investments. They're absolutely, unequivocally, without a doubt, lying to our faces about this disaster zone is going to cost much more money to repair. Well, it's been like that for 20 years rolling up. They understood the costs in these zones that were being damaged. It's always the same areas, predominantly. But for them to come out and say, oh, it just costs more. Well, everybody, you know, is going to cost us more to repair those homes in Florida, so everybody else has to pay more now. That is purely an excuse because of their bad investments. Now, a lot of these insurance companies are going to try to jump in on the Bitcoin wagon, but it's already far too late. Too late for these companies. They don't understand the tech. They don't understand how to leverage against it. It's just, they're too late out on the game right now. And, you know, since you were doing a little research, I'd done too. I did that whole research and report called the Great Bitcoin Grab. Anybody can find that on LinkedIn if you go to David Dubine, or I have it on the Adapt 2030 channel. There was only a certain number of liquid Bitcoin out there, about 2.9 million to 3 million Bitcoin. And I did this on May 15th, which is just about 2 months ago. And how many Bitcoin are available today in liquid supply? Right at 2 million. So a full million Bitcoin out in the liquid circulating supply has disappeared in just 2 months. That leaves us 2 million Bitcoin, and all these companies are suddenly on the FOMO. I was watching an interview. I forget who it was. I think it was MOW, last name, forget the first, Jason Moe, was saying that they're on institutional FOMO right now, which is fear of missing out institutional. It's going to move to sovereign or governmentals. Like the United States wants to have Bitcoin reserve, and then it's going to run down into retail FOMO. And once it hits these different levels, the amount of disappearing Bitcoin will take it to levels we've never even thought possible. And at that point, the corporations that were going to try to get in it are going to have to go to Ethereum or Solana or XRP or some other like smaller coin down the way. And because the storage of value is not there, that's doomed to failure. So if the insurance companies can't get the Bitcoin, they're going to jump into Ethereum or they're going to jump into Solana. But in the long term, I guess, veracity of that, it just doesn't sit correctly with what Bitcoin can do. So we sit in this world now where the ill investments of these major corporations are now your problem. They're going to squeeze you because they can't pay their bills. And this is the world we've moved into. So now talk about that, Ransom, where you're saying that jobs are going to be lost and premiums are going up, and now we need to pay for institutional losses. See, this is an institutional loss. These insurance companies, such gigantic, I mean, gargantuan, like black holes from their bad choices. And now they want you and me to fill it up. Well, that's institutionalized. That's no different than the communist, you know, taking over all industry. This is going into the borderline nefarious just from the insurance edge of it. So what are other companies that are going to follow the same dark avenues to get their coffers refilled by milking the public until you are absolutely dry? And this is where we sit today in the middle of 2025. So thanks for letting me ramble, man. Toss it on. Where are you at? Mute.
Yeah, I was listening to that thing, and that just plays right into what really that, and you're going to hear this more often. It's called the Great Log Off. It's
Hmm.
where all of these people in these giant skyscrapers across the world are going to log off for the last time because they're no longer needed in those positions. And that's a lot of people that really work in there. So now all of those people are going to have to compete with mundane, regular jobs like, I don't know, picking tomatoes, whatever it is. Their degrees will be meaningless because the AI is better, more efficient, faster, and doesn't call into work, doesn't have personal problems, doesn't take maternity leave, doesn't have psychological issues, doesn't have narcotics issues, none of that stuff. And it kind of reminds me of this movie I watched a long time ago, which was, vaguely kind of on the same topic, but it was about people copywriting or selling off their image, their everything about them, their name, their image, their face, to these companies that would then make movies with AI, and everybody just lived down on the bottom ground level, snorting drugs all day, and they had these nannies that walked around taking care of them, basically in these hazmat suits, so that they wouldn't get infected by the fog of drugs that everybody was living. And all the elite that had all their money, they lived up in the sky in these nice blimps. Now that's
The Bitcoin
fictional.
Citadel, like we talked last week, is it underground? Is it an underground facility, or is it a blimp floating in the sky facility?
Right. Well, all of it kind of represents that. And with humanity losing their mind, they're going to have more time to be out there destroying stuff or protesting stuff. There's going to be a lot of people mad at losing their jobs. And then it's going to start like a domino effect. And that's literally what they're calling it, is the great log off. So people from all of these industries where they sit at the other end of a computer terminal for their job, they're just no longer needed. And then you got this crazy stuff. I wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit. You got these guys, and this all fits together. This is all one topic in my mind: war, famine, all of it. It's all one topic because I see it going in the same direction. So this is a
No, wait a second. Why would you not wear a mask? Like, you're going in to do this. Why would you bring your phone with you? And why would you not wear a mask and gloves so you don't get your prints? Like, this is like
man.
101. Like, put a mask on, wear gloves, and ditch your phone. Like, oh,
Well,
what?
the,
That's so ridiculous. You look like a raccoon with the eyes stuck. Look at that bottom foot. It looks like a damn raccoon.
well, he thinks they're geoengineering and that the local Doppler radar, which, by the way, that I don't want to be mean, but the guy that we were on the show with Tim Pool,
Yeah, Brian up at Into Thin Air.
I've been watching him talking about, look, they're creating the weather, and he keeps using these Doppler radar maps of the national Doppler radar thing. And each one of those blips, I could show you the map where they're all at. They're there every single time. They've been there since they built them. But anyway, this guy, he was worried about that. So he went and vandalized the radar. And then you got this guy that everybody's talking about right now. And I wanted to point out that these cloud seeding guys, they're not performing magic, man. They're going to an area that's already developing thunderstorms, already going to have moisture in the air. The cycle is already there to produce this, and then they're seeding on top of it. They're not going out in the middle of the Sahara Desert where there's no weather patterns at all and cloud seeding there, because it would be useless. They're doing it in areas that have moisture in the air already. And so everybody's losing their mind because over here where I'm at, I don't know if you saw it on the national news, Ruidoso got hit again. So all the burn scarring created giant flash floods again, washed away homes, killed some people again, right after the thing in Kerrville, I was just in Kerrville, like a month or two ago. I drove through there, I stopped there, had to do some stuff. And most of that town sits right on the river. So now you're seeing these what they're calling biblical floods and all these things. But if you took a shovel out to any of those areas where the people live and you dug down a 10-foot hole, you're going to see layer after layer after layer of silt that has moved in these flash floods over time because they're canyons and they're next to basins that are flat, and then they have mountainous areas, and the water builds up really, really fast and dumps into the river. So if you live along the river, you're going to be underwater, and people are calling it climate change and man-made, because of the cloud seeding, that it's weather weapons over here in Ruidoso. That's a theory going on. But if they don't remember, it was just 2 years ago, or not even 2 years ago, I think only 1 year ago, they had a massive fire set by a person. They set a fire, it burned up I don't remember how many acreage. And then there was another lightning fire that followed it. So the whole area has these big wildfire burn scars on the side of the mountain. There's literally no vegetation or anything to hold back the water or absorb the water. So, of course, they're having these massive floods. But this is funny because people really are getting to this point where they think it's possible. And I have a theory on why these guys go out and do this in the areas that are already going to rain, because at some point, they're going to start trying to take credit for the weather, all of it. So they're going to say, well, we made it rain, we made it not rain. But they're really not doing anything but writing actual cycles. They probably did the same research you did. They know about monsoon. They know about Nino. They know right where to put this. So the idea that they're doing anything more than maybe making it rain a few hundred feet before it was already going to rain, or maybe a mile before, or whatever it is kind of silly. But you have the Pentagon and all of them participating in this, where they're pushing the idea, where they're also talking about geoengineering. Now you got politicians talking about it. They want to pass bills on it. It's like a big distraction to move you away from what's really happening, is that the food areas are slowly changing. The areas where you can have stable crops are slowly changing. People are going to have to move back up off the river if it continually, rains and dumps like that. Matter of fact, right now, I think North Carolina's flooding again. There's some flooding all over the place. But every time these things happen, everybody goes nuts and they worry about these programs they think the government's doing. Meanwhile, in reality, all the property's being bought up. The people are being set up to be fired. They're changing over. The dollar has to fail. Like you were saying, you're going to have to pick a digital or a dollar. And I can point out that, so there's this, we'll start here with this stake on rare earth company challenging China's control. There's a whole thing about a new renaissance of investors.
The ocean, and I saw some crazy, and when I say crazy, I mean truly insane documentaries on these. There's no regulation, completely unregulated seafloor mining operations. And when I say that, they have these things that are not quite a quarter mile wide, but very bordering on that kind of distance. And all they're doing is hoovering up the bottom sediment, because there's like these nodules that are of the minerals they're looking for. And then they have these huge blast patterns coming back behind it of all the clays and silt. So the amount of drift down, because they're pulling it off of areas that are maybe 3,000, 5,000 feet deep, they're bringing this up. That water circulation is coming through in the upper, several hundred feet of the column. And that blowback is just silting, just vast, insane amounts of ocean, to the point where it's clogging off sea life now.
Yeah, and I don't think they care. The grand
they don't
plan,
care. That's the problem.
Yeah, the grand plan is to be able to do all these strip mining and massive things to support this technological revolution we're in. And here's another one. You can get rich off of if you know the right companies to invest in and stuff like that, because things
Bitcoin
are changing. This is the whole new Earth revolution and how to profit for it. But the reason this is happening is it circles back to the population reduction. And, if people think that war is off the table, they're sadly mistaken. When I'm looking around at things, what I'm seeing is the major setup for World War III. They haven't given it up. It's still on track to happen. This is, you can talk about tariffs and financial wars, but when you really start paying attention, you do see this confrontation between not only Moscow and Washington, but Beijing and Washington. And then when I'm looking at like 700 arrests in Iran, espionage crackdown, top Ukrainian spy shot. And remember a couple of years ago when I said, hey, look, the first couple politicians are getting capped. Something's coming. That some real change is about to happen. The same thing's happening again. We're getting fired upon by Iran, but that's kind of the silly stuff. When you really pay attention to the technological world, we're vamping up for some kind of massive exchange here. And this is footage of China's new hypersonic right-angle turning missile. So it just turns into a new direction almost instantly, defying the laws of physics, almost, not really. And then further down, Russia helping Iran refill their uranium. And on our side, we say, hey, we found out they still have some uranium left. We're probably going to go bomb again.
Air
And then
defense, man. China said we're going to bump up the air defenses of Iran.
right,
So
and
you get
this is
everybody with their proxies getting it on everywhere. So if it's good enough to arm Ukraine a proxy against Russia, then you can't really complain if China or Russia are gonna, buff
right, and
up Iran's defenses. Now, can you?
and this is where I was going to. This is the end result. This one's just about Russia, but Russia is not the only one, and they're putting war torn. And really, there's no real legitimate estimate on losses on the Russian side because we're depending on estimates from intel people in the Ukraine to decide how many they. So we don't even know the number of people that are dying on either side of that, really. But this article says war torn Russia facing population wipeout, ticking time bomb. But it's not about the war. And we all know it's not about the war. The actual problem is infertility. Infertility is happening in all of these I'm going to say picked countries. It's happening, but that's okay because that is the grand plan. That's the grand
China
plan.
too. China too.
China,
There's a
United
billion people
States.
missing. No, it's just demographic decline over a certain amount of time. The same thing.
Right. And in China, you had this one child, policy for a long time. That is fiddlesticks. That's baby play. What's coming is something that you can't even imagine. It's going to be AI controlled government regulation of when and where you can have children. And this will be dependent on maybe your stock portfolio, how much Bitcoin you have. I mean, I can see all of these being a factor on whether or not a government in a certain area decides to let you have offspring. And don't worry about the infertility because they got that cornered now. You remember last year they had the first human-like embryo that they created in a lab. Now we're going much further, lab-grown sperm and eggs. It's okay. We'll grow it. We'll tinker with it. We'll send it to you if you get approved. This is where it's all going. So like you said, it's not just Russia. It's not just China. It's France. It's England. It's Germany. It's Belgium. It's Japan. It's the United States. Even what we considered the third world countries are now showing symptoms of whatever it is that caused that in the rest of the Western world. So the more technologically advanced they get, the more infertile they get. And it all leads to a reduction in the population. So a certain amount of people can live in a world that's completely controlled by the AI with only a certain amount of money out there in circulation. And that will be what the population is based on. Not how much food they can produce, not how much GDP, but how much digital currency is available for you to be able to buy, sell, or trade goods. And that
looks like the orphan trains right there. That's like an orphan train 2.0 from Tartaria. If you can do lab grown, then where did all those kids come from, all those orphan trains? Are you really telling me they're orphans, or were they produced in these labs hundreds of years ago and popped out onto the scene? I don't know. We could talk about that later in the second hour, but thank you so much for joining us for hour one of Civilization Cycle. We're going to take a short break here. Please remember civilizationcycle.com and also buy me a coffee /Civilization Cycle. I want to talk about the Atlantic Nina and the weather changes across the ocean and the sort of the half fake news about Southern oceans reversing. But please join us, Civilization Cycle, and we'll be right back in a couple minutes.
We've been told that tooth decay and gum disease are inevitable. But what if they're not? What if everything you've been taught about invasive treatments to restore your smile was a myth? As a bioterrain physician and herbalist with over 40 years experience, I'm well aware that teeth are living tissues that connect to every other part of the body. Your overall health starts in your mouth. This is why I've created nature's perfect formula to remineralize the teeth and heal the gums. Using a blend of powerful ancient oils and minerals, along with the latest and cutting-edge herbal technologies, I formulated the ultimate natural tooth serum to ensure a bright smile and healthy gums.
This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts, Alpha Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com /civilization. We're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
How do you feed your families when the shelves are empty, the stores are shut, and there's no food available? What is the fastest, easiest, and most productive foods to grow? What is the quickest way to get somebody who has no skills at all up and running and producing very quickly? If you understand that we're at a point in history where it is no longer optional to be growing your own food, if you're like really freaked out and concerned because you've never grown food before and you don't have any skills, you don't know how to do that, but you know how important it is, then I want to let you know, however you stumbled here, you're in the right place. My name is Marjorie Wildcraft. I'm the founder of the Grow Network, and I have been the female leader in the survival and preparedness space for the last 20 years.
How to grow lots of food, even if you have no experience, are older and out of shape. This is for people who want the fastest and easiest ways to produce healthy and delicious meat, eggs, and vegetables. Because you know that growing your own food is like printing your own money. During this webinar, you will get status of global food shortages, how long the crisis will last, how much space you need to grow food, easiest, highest calorie foods you can produce, a complete plan for producing all the food you need, how to get started today, regardless of season. Marjorie will show you the fastest, easiest, and simplest ways to produce calories and nutrition, especially in a crisis and/or grid-down situation. The assumption is that you have no experience and you need to start producing food immediately. The most popular part of the webinar is the Q&A session at the end. So please come prepared with your questions.
Don't forget to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
And welcome back for the second hour here. I was going to try to kick us off. I had set up my scene as well, but I don't know where it's gone to, Ransom. I had everything set up for the tokenization. Well, and let me see if I can get on and share my screen here for y'all. Excuse the tech breakdown. Here we are, satellite. Let's open this one up here. All right, so the satellite data confirms. Now, please keep in mind, it took them 10 years to release this data. And unbeknownst to me, I had just done a video today about the African La Nina off of West Africa in the Atlantic Ocean. And then all these people wrote me back and are like, whoa, what about the Southern Oscillation? You seen anything about the Southern Oscillation? Not the AMOC, which is the Atlantic Overturning Circulation, but this is the southern version of it in Antarctica. And I got a couple articles pulled up for you here. Now, this one for the satellite data confirms the Southern Ocean entered a new physical state. So a lot of people are under the impression that the ocean has actually reversed its circulation, which is not true. What it's talking about is ocean salinity at the top 100 feet, 200 feet of the ocean surface waters. That's not driving down the normal flow of it, because this is kind of what the Day After Tomorrow movie was based on, is the ocean, the salinity thinned too much, or there wasn't enough salinity to get that heavier water to drop. And then that circulation pattern stopped on a dime, literally. But as you look at this article here on the Watchers, it was one of my favorite ones. They find that the Southern Ocean may have entered a new physical state not previously observed in, get it, modern observational era. So they're not saying it's the first time it's ever happened. It's just saying in the modern era, which for me is 1979 and forward. This is the modern instrumentation era. So if we go further back into the British, I'm sure they have logs of and had kept seawater samples, and you could probably find those elsewhere going back to the late 1700s. The Dutch did as well. I'm sure there's records stretching back to the 15 and 1600s from the Spanish with some of the same details of, I know they didn't go down to Antarctica at that time, but areas across the planet that are seemingly first time evers, maybe not. So what they noticed here, and I'll put this is very important for those, this is such a sensational, like, fear story, do not believe it. What they're talking about a long-term freshening increase of surface salinity. And that just means that there's more fresh water going in, less salt water. So what they're saying is Antarctica is melting in certain areas, not all of it. In some areas, that's pushing fresh water. And now they're blaming increasing sea ice on global warming and rising temperatures. So, you know, try to put that in perspective. There's more sea ice because we're warming the planet. So it's jumped the shark to the point they need to explain why there's more sea ice now. We've actually crossed that Rubicon. Sea ice is increasing, and they need to explain why. And then suddenly, conveniently, after all this decade, this story comes out, and suddenly we got all this less dense surface waters, a vertical mixing explanations as to why there's more sea ice. But at the same time, I guess the freshening of it here, I want to pull up another. Let me see, where am I at here? I need to get this. Let me find this. I had them all. Okay, Southern Ocean Oscillation, share this tab instead. There we go. They have several articles that have come out over this last days or so. And what they're talking about is a major reversal in ocean circulation, which is not exactly true. The ocean did not reverse itself down there, so do not buy this. They're trying to obfuscate and confuse everybody. And here's the one that really puts it into perspective here. They actually did a good job of it, even though they're, super global warming, rah-rah. Ocean reversal hysteria, facts not included. So this whole media machine that's coming out to talk about the entire surface and the entire Southern Oscillation has reversed itself, and it's never happened before. What they're finding here is, for decades, Southern Polar Ocean, and this is about 50 south or so, it's been because of melting ice. Like I said, they're talking about the salinity only. And they're just talking about the surface salinity. And this has only been measured since 2015. So again, they talk about the mid-1970s is when the data really started to be collected about this. So we're not even talking, 60 years maybe? And they're trying to make a whole thing like the entire planet's oceans are reversing because of 60 years of data. And it's all about salinity content. It is not about water circulation. They are talking about water, don't get me wrong, but they're talking about the mixing, and they're talking about the downwelling, the vertical circulation, the vertical, instead of what you consider the entire ocean mixing. I don't know why they decided to put this. And here's the whole thing. I even write it's very clear here. Providing essential evidence of the Southern Ocean's potential transition toward persistently reduced sea ice coverage. But look at that. See, it's in blue there. But then right up here, that says the sea ice expansion because of the surface salinity changes. In the same paragraph, reduced ice, but also increasing ice, literally in the same paragraph. So you can see the confusion amongst people here. And don't be derailed by this whole Southern Oscillation. I don't know why they've decided to pop it up and really just go so deeply with this and scare everybody right now. The only reason I can possibly think is because sea ice is increasing around Antarctica, which it is. They're borderline at the coldest that it's ever been in terms of record coldest temperatures ever in Antarctica this year, right now. So they have to explain something away. And if we come down to the earth changes, this is one of my favorite sites to look at. All these different ideas are here. So you got volcanoes and sinkholes and whatnot. And if we go back to just the home page here, which I don't know how to go to without taking off this. All it is flash floods. Another bridge has collapsed. There was a collapse of the bridge over in India. We got collapses of bridge in China and Nepal. And everywhere you look at, this is what I completely, you know, Ransom, I know I have said this before, that as we get into this earth rifting type of thing electromagnetically, we're going to see an enormous amount of bridges start coming down because they're getting tugged at the banks in different directions. And we would see a lot of sinkholes, and we would see a lot of electrical activity in the atmosphere, like these rare gigantic jets. This thing's stretching up nearly 100 miles up to the ionosphere. And, you know, everywhere you look, it's just something. The polar wander has been blamed on global warming, ice accumulation. Again, the opposite. Okay, so global warming, I thought everything was melting, but now they're saying that ice damming is really the cause for the polar wander, not the actual magnetic field changes. So again, they don't want you to look at this. They don't want you to talk about magnetic field changes, because this truly is the 50,000-pound elephant in the room. If all the changes we're seeing are being driven by magnetic field changes, then there's really, it's kind of game over at that point in terms of, you know, how the society is going to act and behave. Nobody's going to believe in the future. So anything in terms of investment, because we're coming really close to a lot of people waking up to the fact that their explanation of ice dams causing the geomagnetic poles to move, but we're supposed to be into an extreme hot house where ice melts and there's no more ice left, and ice is a thing of the past, into using ice as an excuse for ice damming for the geomagnetic wandering. We got, like that article, there's more ice occurring around in Antarctica, so they need to explain that away. We got, as in the beginning of the show, I was saying, the snow events in Turkey, the snow events in China, and then the Alps just received a foot of snow over the last couple of days. Like, there's a lot of anomalies happening. Parts of Europe were cold at the same time they told you focus on the heat wave in Spain. All of Eastern Europe going over into the Ukraine, by the way, were like 10 degrees Celsius, which is almost, 18 degrees, or you could say, if you want to do the just 2.2 degrees, then 22 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than normal for this time of the year. And there's a lot of anomalies happening. Asia as a whole, general, cooler than normal right now. And I just got those NOAA and the European data charts off that I did the video this morning. They're only showing 0.2 degree Fahrenheit globally as of today of the total temperatures over the 30-year average. Just 0.2 of 1 degree Fahrenheit, not even a degree Celsius, a degree Fahrenheit. So there's a lot of things aren't making sense. So a lot of excuses need to come forth. So you keep investing. You keep going to work until you're outsourced by AI, and you please obey the rule of law and kind of keep things like stitched together until it's time for the rug pull. And thanks for joining us for the second hour. That is my intro, and I appreciate everybody here. And I'm going to go into the science as we move through the hour here. And I see you got your lightning mapper up there. What's up with?
Well, you remember last week I pointed out the lightning big if you go watch our last episode, I pointed out that big lightning bundle right in the center of Texas, right down by Kerrville and stuff, and that big old Sprite that you showed, which is the biggest that we've ever seen. That's the storm that came out of. The night we were talking about all the electricity, that's when they took that photograph from the ISS. So if you look, remember last week I was telling you that these storms down here where I live, they just go in two lines usually. It goes off in one direction over Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, into Kentucky and Tennessee and all that. Or you get this one that goes up through Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and eventually ends up around Chicago. And you can see that right now. So you can see that line of things. I guarantee you this one down that's right now in Mexico is going to kill people over here in the U.S. And this happens every time. I watch it every year. I can literally go outside in this mountain range right here. See, there's none. I saw this earlier today. It was over where I live earlier, and it's moving in this line, and you can just see the line. So there's literally no reason for people to get caught off guard. We have so much technology that tells you this is coming. The only problem is that people don't bother to look. and they don't bother to prepare if they did look. So maybe it won't hit you, but maybe it will. But I was pointing out, look at all this lightning again. Worldwide lightning. And again, it's all over here around this the Gulf of America. We'll just put it that way. You see all this lightning?
Gulf of the list never released.
And here's the other patch of it over near China. So and again, if I zoom out again, well, I think that's as far. It's all in the same latitudes. It's all right around the globe, all in the same spot.
Yeah, so let me throw that thing. I did find finally the article I was looking for here. Let me pop it up for you. This one here, rarest number cold front. Now, again, this was preceded by electrical activity in those same areas that you were talking about in Europe here that was slamming against the mountains. So you had this heat slamming against the record heat in the Mediterranean, and then somehow record heat from Spain all the way up into France with record heat across the Mediterranean that turns into a foot-deep snowstorm in the Alps. Explain that one to me. Something has gone terribly awry with our systems here, and the only way I could possibly explain that, Ransom, is that it has to be something to do with the magnetic field of the planet has shifted to the point now where it's not controllable. It's to the point now where civilization is being ripped apart at the threads. Like, how much longer can you keep humanity like pacified, I guess is their best word, and have them still behave as they were trained, however, whatever their age is?
Well, that condition over in Europe is kind of like this. You have right here today it's only 79 degrees now that the sun went down, but earlier today it was a 105 extreme heat. But if you see this little line, even from right here to over here, 68 degrees up in the mountains. So all this moisture hits here, and it gets really cold when it hits that 12,000 feet area, and it literally just lifts right up the mountain. It changes. It totally changes. It gets cold in the upper parts, and then it rolls out in the plains and devastating death. And I see, I mean, I literally see it. I could be, I don't know anything about meteorology really, but I can see a pattern when I see a pattern. So right here, right now, it looks like over here near Des Moines, you're going to get hammered right there. This is going to be severe flooding. And then whenever you go over to this, where is it? The severe weather map, there's always this thing you can go look at, and they're telling us heat advisory. It's so hot, it's record breaking. No, it's not. It's actually quite a mild year right now. Now over in Phoenix, they're talking about, how hot it is over there. See, they don't even have an extreme weather, thing on the map there, even though it's like 111 to 115 degrees out there, because that's a normal temperature for that area, especially like right around the Phoenix and Tucson area. It is hot, high desert. And people don't really realize how much of this whole area in the Southwest, if you don't live in a city, you ain't got no water when the power turns out. So like we talk about these scenarios that are happening. You guys over in the South, you're lucky. There's rain. There's always rain. There's always water. You can kind of look forward to that. But over here, if they turn off the power, everything's dead. It's just off, and you would have to have an artesian well to survive, like they did prior to the electric grid being installed over here. I kind of wanted to.
Ransom, let me share something real quick with you. I had that slide already ready for the sea surface temperatures. Let me slide this one here. There you go. So what we're looking at here is the Atlantic Nina, and that's what's off of West Africa. Now that was pegged to the charts down to 3 degrees Celsius, so they had to change the charts up to like the 5-degree range. And look at that cold blob that's over coming off of, let's say, Baja and out there. And then the La Nina is forming. That's a dissipation wave that you're seeing right there of the El Nino. That's turning cooler, and you'll start to see that area going all the way out to Indonesia, turning blue. Now, the interesting thing, you're starting to see the cold blob in the north start to emerge itself. So this is what's something going to be, looking at coming up in, let's say, the autumn. And for those of you who really want to do the research on this, you can go to coralreefwatch.noaa.gov, and that's where this is. And this gives you the, just the full look at it. And east, we go global, and if you can look at the tropics on regional images. But look at the heat wave that's coming off of the ocean temperatures up in Japan.
Yeah.
right? So you're getting this dichotomy here. And then what's so interesting, if I might pop into, I think I'm going to go west on this, east or west. No, sorry, it should be east. That'll take me over to where the Arabian Peninsula is. Why is it so cold off the Arabian Peninsula? That is in the Middle East, south of Saudi Arabia and Oman and Yemen right there. But the water temperatures are 4 degrees Celsius below normal. So you start to look at some of these anomaly spots. And as you come down here, that's equatorial. Why is it so cold across the equator then, or not the equator, but off the Southern Ocean going down toward Antarctica? You're getting these blobs again of the cool. And it seems to be a lot of these like splotches happening across the world here, where it's just hard to explain it. It doesn't make sense. And, you know, South Atlantic, again, that cold area that they call it an Atlantic Nina is the proper term for it. It's like La Nina or El Nino are normally a Pacific event, but this is a Nina event that's occurring in the Atlantic. And this is what's dampening the hurricane formation, because there's also a lot of dust this year. So you get in a lot of dust that dampens hurricane formation, but you're also getting this cool water pattern, which also the storms just kind of don't form themselves so quickly coming off of there. But, you know, Southern Oceans, you're seeing a little heat and you're getting this sort of, you know, I call them blotches for the best term. And I'm trying to find the...
We got that one off of the Baja there. That is going to roll right over this hot patch of land, and it's going to create a lot of thunderstorms that are going to go northeast.
You're talking coming this direction right off of here, up
Yeah.
where you're. This is going to roll into the monsoon's going to roll right over like where you are.
Absolutely. That's why we're having everybody's tripping about the flooding and stuff. It's not bizarre. It's just a circumstance. It's kind of messed up, because if you think about it, the guy that went out there and started the fire killed several people in the fire, but there's still people dying today because of that fire, because of the burn scars and the rapid amount of water that's coming off the watershed of the mountains there. It's messed up, but it is what it is. And then you kind of wonder why all of these people were out starting fires last year. And then you have this new weather pattern roll into all those same places that had the fire, dumping massive amounts of rain. And then people thinking, well, they're cloud seeding. It's geoengineering. It's weather weapons. Well, if you count, like Antifa and stuff like that as a weather weapon, matter of fact, they've charged, I don't know, at least 40 people in the last year for producing climate change. And that really is man-made climate change. If you start a fire and then the following year you get flooded out and the whole demographics of the plant and animal life change in an area, you have completely climate changed that area. And that would be the only example of man-made global warming and climate change, because it got really warm on the globe where they started the fire. I kind of wanted to show you this too. Look, I think this is the right one. Here's your map. We're into maps here. So before I get there, we were talking about all the AI and the spying, but that's okay because it's all part of the plan. So they have new laws, new things coming up to control all of this. Australia orders search engines to enforce digital ID checks, which we all know has nothing to do with whether or not they're worried about kids getting on the internet. It's all about you proving your identity on the internet. It's about proving who you are. It's about biometrics and knowing who's where, what they're looking at, when they're looking at it, how fast they get information, so they could feed all that metadata back into the system. And then you got, don't worry about it, the WEF, the WEF and the UAE launch AI regulation platform. I wonder what that could be used for. I mean, censorship, spying on people, finding out stuff. And then I wanted to, where was it? Here it is. You were talking about how many times, well, before we get to that, we'll look at this map. So this is supposed to be the freedom map of the world right here. And I don't know who decided what is free or not free, but if you look at this map, you see really high scores in places like Australia, Ireland, the UK, Norway, Finland, Poland, places like that. They're all supposedly really free, but some of these places are the same places like Spain, Italy, France, the UK, Australia, being some of those places that you could get locked up for saying an opinion on the internet. These are the same places that they're introducing the draconian spying software and biometric systems so that they know who's who, what they're doing on the internet, and that's going to get into the purchasing. So I have a feeling that Bitcoin is kind of set up there to be your last vestige of privacy before they take it over, because it'll be the only form of payment that people switch to get out of the dollar and the bricks. And if you look at this map, you could tell that somebody that had this in mind made the map. What you see in red are BRICS nations, mostly, and then supposedly the free nations in blue. However, we all know that Canada, the UK, Australia, Japan, even, some of these places are not what you would call free on certain things. They might be free for some things, but not for other things. Like Brazil just turned into a communist country a few years ago. You can get arrested for online, all kinds of stuff. So if they can arrest you for non-crimes in these free countries, what do you think happens in the future when they have this entire thing set up and they're deciding that every little action that you're doing goes against regulations, or there's some kind of law in place for it? Well, they have it set up so that they can turn you off. They can punish you via not letting you take part in the systems, or literally lock you up in one of the many prisons being built. And this is a good time to admit I was wrong. Evidently, they are putting people in the alligator Alcatraz. So maybe there'll be the polar bear Alcatraz next in Alaska. But it just proves that people will lock people up for things that, can be questionable about how criminal or wrong that they are. I'm not advocating one thing or another, but here's another instance.
Can you wide that map out for a second? Can you make
Yeah.
it large full screen here? I'd like to do a mind experiment with everybody with this. Now, you too. Like, to take a look at these countries in red, for example. Like, which one of those are safe enough to go visit, travel, and live in that have a lower cost of living than any of these blue countries? Like Australia, United States, Canada, anywhere in Europe is just getting ridiculously ridiculous. So I see Kazakhstan up there. That's going to be a big one coming up. Kazakhstan is the center of the financial capital of the new BRICS nations. China, if you're an American, maybe not so much. But other places, and look at Southeast Asia. I mean, you can still go to Thailand, you can still go to Malaysia, you can still go to Vietnam, and Indonesia is just an incredible place to go to. Great food, friendly people, low crime. If you like, surfing, outdoor activity thing, although the visa is only 2 months there. But like, Ransom, where are you looking at on the map that might be a place that you go, all right, well, I could jump there and live there for 3 months and move to another location for 3 more months or something, to try to kind of outmaneuver all this craziness in terms of finance that's going to be occurring? I mean, if you have the Bitcoin, be very leery if you're going to be get Bitcoin loans, because your Bitcoin was in your wallet and then it needs to go to an intermediary. Now, they might be a private finance company, but somewhere along the way, that's going to touch a bank before it gets vaulted somewhere, like with BitGo or whatnot. So if there's a financial crisis in the Great Bail-In, like David Rogers Webb talks about, they're going to snap your Bitcoin up, and then you will no longer own it. They might not even pay you out for it. They might just straight up steal it, So be careful with the Bitcoin loans. I mean, it's very precarious. Yeah, there's a lot of value there, but how do you actuate on that value without getting a tax liability? I digress. So where it says not free, so where do you think, Ransom, might be a spot in some of these countries where you go, well, lower cost of living, and it might just actually be conducive to jump between these countries if SHTF and all these blue nations?
Well, first pops out in mind to me, which is available, is Mexico. However, they just started Kill the Gringo campaign down there, where they're bashing up anything owned by Americans and spray painting, Kill the Gringo. So I wouldn't want to go there. Plus, this whole map, despite being blue, these are all the countries except for the United States that you can't even have a gun or a knife to protect yourself. You get thrown in jail for things you say or think or pray. I wouldn't actually say that this map is real. I mean, think about Russia. For Russians, they can do all kinds of stuff. It may not be free for us to go over there, but for them, it's pretty free. But yet they're marked number 12. And you have Tibet as 0. They gave them a score of 0 compared to 84 in the United States. And according to this, you're really, really free in Canada. They got a 97. Which you kind of know that that's nonsensical. Which brings me kind of to my next point. All of these countries that you're talking about, I kind of knew you would go there. What do we do about the fact that people don't like us all over the place in a way that's never kind of been like that before? So how U.S. tourists are dealing with their new animosity overseas. I mean, all over the place, we're becoming very, very unpopular. But in other places, we're going to become more popular. So they need a, kind of a non-biased map to show us where exactly is it friendly for Americans to go and invest, buy property, things like that. I would say Mexico was that place for quite a while. A lot of people went down there. They're retiring there, buying property there, opening businesses there. But right now, because of the weird U.S. Mexico sentiment, they're being attacked. Their stores are being crashed. And I would think that that was probably far left people doing that. But anytime that you got a place that's writing on the walls, kill a certain group of people, you probably don't want to go there. So like, I'm not wanting to go to South Africa, and I visit Mexico regularly, but right now, maybe not so much. I don't want to. I don't want to be part of the Kill the Gringo campaign.
Wait, I could
So-
say Republic of Georgia used to be on that list as well, but now because we try to start a color revolution there, when Americans are not so welcome, and you could blend in there. You look like you and I could both blend in there super easy.
Right. Well, recently the Taliban released a video. I don't have it queued up, but they released a video where it starts out with some guy with a bag over his head, and there's a bunch of Muslim guys behind him with guns, and then they pull off the mask and they're showing all the fun things you can do in Afghanistan, and they're saying, don't worry, Americans, Taliban wants you to come. You can come for tourism, you can have a good time here, you can shoot our guns. By the way, you can shoot guns there. But yeah, the amount of psychological warfare now between the countries, even with the new platforms, and I'll see it developing into a two-sided block now. I did think it was going to be three, but now I think it's only going to be two. It's only going to be BRICS and the dollar, and then eventually there's going to have to be some kind of settlement between those, and the one that's going to be the bridge is the cryptocurrency. So that's the way that you'll be able to move money to the other block and back for a short period of time in privacy and still make money. But at some point, that's also not going to be private.
Yeah, it already isn't on most blockchains. I mean, they already. I would say Monero, Zcash, and Pirate Chain would be the best ones for anonymity. Because I was really super deep into the anonymity coins in 2017, but I was a little bit early on their excruciating need for not being tracked on when you spend it, how much you have of it, and those operate like, why should somebody know that I gave Ransom money or he gave me money? That's our own private deal. If we want to pay each other like, hey, thanks for the loan, or thanks for buying this, or whatever, that's our own business. Nobody else's business in the world except our own. And it should be that way. I mean, if I gave cash to him, or he gave cash to me, it's the same thing. That's an anonymous transaction. It just shouldn't be like that. But everything's tracked and traced. So, they always used to say Bitcoin for this, Bitcoin criminal, da, da, da. No, it's not. It's a completely open ledger, ridiculously open ledger, And I don't know where these world's going to take us, but remember to get loans against your crypto, please. Just not financial advice, but don't sell it. We've come to the time finally where you can get loans against your assets, because we have, what do you say, the just best description is we moved out of a fiat-based world and we moved into an asset-based world where if you have an asset, you can get a loan in that fake fiat stuff against the asset. Now, with the house and with the home, would it get bailed in the Great Taking? Probably. But again, your crypto, if it's on a cold storage wallet, it won't get bailed in. It will possibly get bailed in if you do that transaction out to get loans in fiat against your collateral, a Bitcoin or whatever you're going to, Ethereum. There's like anything you can pledge out there to get collateral. You can even get XRP loans. But that transaction touches a bank somewhere along the way because they got to give you fiat back out. And that's really what you want. Like a lot of people have a lot of locked up capital now. They got a lot of crypto, but every time you sell it, you have a tax event where people want to borrow against it. And that's the same way, like wealthy people, if they have $1 million piece of art, they never sell it. They go to a bank and they get some sort of appraisal on it. And then the bank will loan them a certain percentage against the artwork. And the artwork is kept in some sort of, secure facility. And then that's how they do it. They roll all their assets. They never sell. But remember, everything on the distributed ledgers or the blockchain itself, and when I say distributed ledger, I'm talking about XRP or any kind of these settlement ledgers, but the blockchain itself is completely, absolutely 100% visible to everybody at all time. This is why the politicians hate it, because they can't take bribes. If we're moving over into a dollar-based or stable coin standard, the politicians aren't going to be able to take the bribes anymore. We'll be able to track and trace where every single Satoshi goes, or every single whatever name your coin goes to, into which pocket. And I'm sure, like Ransom said, it's kind of free, open, wild westy now, even though it's been really contained into a box compared to what it was earlier in like 2015, 17, whatnot. There was no KYC to get a wallet or get online, or you could just like open an account and trade with nobody even knew your name. But now everybody needs KYC, da, 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 da. So in the future, to interact in that world, you will absolutely be KYC'd to the Himalayas and back, full of paperwork to participate in that world. But still, it's not at that level yet. But as we move into this new system, because I don't know anybody who can open a bank account and just walk into a bank and go, hey, I need an account. And they'll be like, cool, here's a number, love you, see you later, put this number in anytime you want. We don't even care about your name, address, phone number, anything. Just use this number. That was old Switzerland. That's gone. Nowhere else on the planet's like that anymore, except, well, your crypto wallet that might be not attached to you from the old days when you bought a bunch of stuff that went into your wallet with no names on it. The only way they're ever going to find out if you ever bought anything is if you KYC, come out and go into that world again, and they go, oh, that matches that with that thing that dude bought in like 2016 or 2015. You know, that's when it's going to match up. But if you didn't sell it, you won't have a tax liability to it. So anyway, everything on the blockchain is totally visible. Do not think that you're invisible running through this world. It's more going to be, and with AI and like Coinbase telling the IRS who has crypto, they finally gave the whole list to the IRS. So if you get that letter that says, hey, adjust your tax return because you got crypto, thanks Coinbase. But you can't, there's no anonymity in this world anymore for crypto, except those few chosen tokens. Like I say again, I'll give you the list: Monero, Zcash, and Pirate Chain. Otherwise, everything is totally an open book. So please tread carefully. The people you deal with might not be predatory in this environment. But I assure you, as they scale, it levels up in the banking sector, in the central banking sector, in the clearing houses, in the broker dealers, whatever form that takes. There are predators at the highest levels that want your Bitcoin. So when you're coming out to get loans against you, you're like, oh, I like this finance company. They seem so friendly. I know the owner. Between your Bitcoin and that finance company is a bank, and there are predators that will swoop you like a hawk that dives in, an eagle dives in and grabs a fish out of the placid lake. And, you know, everybody's going to be wooed into this world here. But again, tread cautiously. We're walking through a minefield everywhere we go, whatever, as a country you live in. Because remember when I started to do all this grand solar minimum research, and I was looking for areas that had like a consistent climate for thousands of years, that had survived ups and downs through like extremes. Republic of Georgia was one of those, because they had 8,000 years of constant wine production. So after Mount Ararat being very close to there, some people would say that was Noah's descendants that came down, and that whole, you know, lineage that popped out of there started cultivating wine, viticulture, and then it's been consistently, this is the thing, consistently producing wine for 8,000 years. Like, wine's a finicky thing. It's very dependent on temperature, humidity. Wine vines are very easy to kill. Your grapevines, boom, they're gone in a second if you don't take care of them. So that microclimate between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, whatever it's doing there, allows that perfect climate. So I was thinking, if you're going to survive somewhere in a grand solar minimum and food production is going to get knocked out at the knees, you're going to want to go to an area that has consistently performed for 8,000 years. Okay, those are kind of my variables. If it performed for 8,000 years, that's as good as gold, because gold's been good for 8,000 years. But then Indonesia, also in this area called Sumba Island, it's like if you go for Bali and then you go over to Lombok, and you head south of there and out, Timor's there, and you go south of Timor, you come to this super gigantic island called Sumba. No tourists out there, barely developed, but it is a massive food producer and could produce way more food. Oceans around there are some of the most incredible oceans, full of suns. So Dave, what do you think happens? I missed that. What do you think happens with those of us that don't use the internet or something? I missed that bottom one there. So those are my hot spots or cool spots, or these areas that you would survive in this grand solar minimum. Okay, so now you start to look at it again. Americans are no longer welcome in the Republic of Georgia. You are still welcome down in Indonesia. The only problem is your visa is really short. What do you think happens to those of us that don't use the internet and won't comply? You're going to have to think of a different way of living. Bartering in communities when you're non-connected. Now think about it, just do that for today. You stop using all credit cards, you don't use the internet, you have no ATMs, you have no way to get cash out of a bank because you're not existing in that system. No bank accounts, and like really take it down. There's no way to pay bills online. You have no mortgage, you can't because you can't have a bank account. You have no driver's license and you're existing outside that system right today. Like just picture yourself there. Completely devoid of any access to banking or internet or finance, then how would you survive? Even if you have your land, you're going to have to pay property taxes on it. Like I would say, well, I would run up to my 20 acres in the forest and build a little cabin and sit up there and I'll trade with all these other neighbors who have little cabins in their 20 acres that decided to jump off the grid too. Well, that's great until you need to pay a property tax. And how do you interact with the system? Well, you're going to need cash. Okay, maybe I got a mattress stuffed full of cash. I could pay my property tax for a few years, but then maybe that cash runs out or a rat gets into it and eats it. Because I was watching Pablo Escobar, this old drug dealer from back in the day in Colombia. He was like the biggest one back in the 80s. Their problem was they had so much cash laying around that they were getting like 5% losses to their rodents of all their money. Like really, they had billions of dollars just laying around, like complete rooms full, houses, villas full, like completely full of cash. And one of their biggest things was like, how do we keep the mice and all these things from eating our money and using it for betting? Like you lose hundreds of millions of dollars a year to mice eating their money, literally. So they were trying to find different ways to move all the money. It's a pretty interesting thing about Escobar, like how they lived outside the system there, by the way, if you want to do some research on that. But they eventually had to come back in because they had to get that money out usable somehow. So I don't really have an answer for you other than you're going to have to get into a trading community. But at the end of that line somewhere, somebody's going to have a connection back to that real world again so you can interact and have a way to go buy food or interact. I'm sure you could be pretty self-sufficient, but not 100%, self-sufficient. You're still going to need something made of metal or steel. Unless there's like a foundry out there and you guys are doing blacksmithing or something. Otherwise, at some point, you're going to have to come back in that world and interact with it. Like it's really not possible any longer to live that way. I'm sure there are people who do it, but they are so few and far between. Literally just probably there are only a few thousand on the whole planet. Otherwise, you're going to have to deal with the system and figure out how to do the very best you can of not deeply interacting with it, but just barely touching like a fingernail of your toe into the water to stay in there to have access to something. And anyway, how would you even communicate with anybody? You'd have to even have a mailbox. What are you going to do? Like, hey, send the letter to this tree on the side of the road that I carved a hole in, and you can drop a letter in there. Like that's not even an address. So you couldn't even get posted mail to you if you don't want to use the internet. Like there's a lot of things that are way outside the realm of being possible these days. And with this new digitized money coming in, smoke signals, exactly. But who can reply to those? And how can you trade that for value to then get something that you need for your life? Like these are some real things that I've thought about many a times myself. Don't even kid yourself. Like I have thought through many a scenario since the beginning and inception of this Adapt 2030 channel, seeing that this food was going to be the key thing with the thumb screws is going to be the food, your access to the food. Now we're in the beginning innings of the change over the economy to get you to that digital system. And then the real hoops and hurdles start to be able to get you to the food. If they're already tracking and tracing and got surveillance cameras in every single aisle in all the supermarkets across all of the UK, and they're at that level of like pre-criming you if you're going to shoplift, and they're watching your every single move in a supermarket. Pony Express, your horses need feed. They're going to need vets. Horses are very easy to injure. They're very, horses are fragile animals. Well, there's a bunch of people who own horses around here. They're always seeing vets, or they're always, license, registration, insurance. Where are you going to get any of that? You're not. So you're going to have to interact outside that system. And what if you do truly get sick? Like, there's pioneering medicine, and I get it. There's some herbal cures and things. But even the Amish, they know when it's time to go to a hospital. Like, you're going to have to interact in that world again of going to a hospital. Like, they have their own set of doctors. Like, the Amish are cool. Everybody loves them. They have their own set of like country doctors, or just doctors that will come out to the Amish farm to treat them if it's something within reason. But, like, they can set broken bones over there, and they can do anything like respiratory. They don't even get, I don't even know where the prescriptions come from. They just pop up and they got medicine, But if it's something very dire, they take them out of the farm and back to a real hospital. So, you're even battling in that kind of edge of things. At what point can you get injured so badly that you need a hospital? You're going to have to interact in that system. Now, I know you can go uninsured and whatever. A lot of people do. But even that point of, once you're back in the hospital again, there are going to be a lot of questions like, what's your address, where you live, and all these things. They got all your blood, they got your DNA, they got everything at that point. So you're back in the system again. That's what I'm saying. It's so difficult to not exist in this world today. You're going to have some basic something. I thought about the problem too, and I just haven't come to a solution. So if anybody out there does have a solution, please throw it here. Ransom's monitoring the comments, because I would look for it too, like a true solution for it. Like, how do you get outside the system without truly being in it? Because there's some normies that are so deep in it, man. They got the ear things and they're on constant Google and all these. Nah, not for me. And I guess I'll stop there, Ransom. But you know where I was going. You can't really not exist in the system anymore.
No. I had this article already for a different show.
Yeah, I saw that. That is so strange that Zero Hedge would carry such an article.
Right. Well, you brought it up a minute ago when we were talking about AI, like how long has things been happening? And this goes through, maybe some debatable things, but it's pretty trippy. A 2,000-year-old batteries. Everybody knows about the Baghdad batteries. You got ancient Egyptian light bulbs. That's kind of the standard stuff that you might have heard about, the ancient aliens. And then you got the Great Wall of Texas.
Oh, that's a good one. They tried to excavate that, and they went down like some 90 feet down. And they never found the bottom of it.
Right. Well, people are arguing whether or not it's, man-made or geologic, but the guy that excavated, I watched the whole program on it. It literally went to corners and made right angles. It was definitely a fenced off place. The problem is that it's dated 200 to 400,000 years ago. So who was in Texas then? Who knows? 1.8 billion year old nuclear reactor. I'm sure you've heard about this one, where they dug down.
It's in Gabon. Of course it would be in Gabon.
Yeah, so they dug down to dig up uranium, and then found that it had already been extracted. And then geologists were saying that whatever happened there was 1.8 billion years ago, and the operation lasted 500,000 years. Whoever was digging uranium up there. Well,
think about that. That would be the same as today. Now, if we had a cataclysmic event on our planet right now, where our reactors would be, those would be uranium mines in the future.
Right. This one, I kind of, I don't agree with this one. If you stretch this map out, this is the Perry Reese map. If you straighten out this coastline, you'll find that it matches South America perfectly. It's not Antarctica. But a lot of people thought it was, but if you just stretch the coastline down, it maps South America perfectly. But there's other stuff out there like this one, a 2,000-year-old earthquake detector in China. 132 AD, Zheng Hing, if I said that right, created the world's first seismoscope. They don't know how it works still, though, but he did it back then. So they were up to all kinds of stuff. And this one's a really weird one, if it turns out to be true. 150,000-year-old pipes in China. It was pipes that was run from a lake underground. They found it. So You can argue with their
That's the
dating.
Qinghai Lake. That's the same area where it just snowed. That snow story I was telling you about, Qinghai, right there.
Well, think about it. All of this insinuates that possibly, Neanderthal, Denisovan, some other hominid, other kind of humans were doing all kinds of stuff and got thrown back into and here's the Antikythera mechanism, which was a complex computer to map out the stars. That's 150 BC. It probably did other stuff. Drill bit in a coal. This one's kind of weird here too.
Yeah, they found some hammers in coal too, and like coal seams, they found like hammers and different kind of random stuff.
Right. And then you got the 2.8
Oh, the
billion
spheres,
year
I
old
forgot about
spheres,
those. Yeah.
right? All of this stuff, Iron Pillar of Delhi, 1,500 years old, but could be older, remains rust free all this time. Astounding purity. It's a 99.72% iron, meaning either they found a giant asteroid, or someone was doing some hardcore metallurgy back in the day, 1,500 years ago, which I think probably was happening in more than one place. And then you got it just goes on and on. Here's a sword that couldn't have been made until after the Industrial Revolution, yet it dates back to 800 to 1000 AD. It just goes on and on, really. These are those, what do they call them?
Out of time artifacts.
Yeah, well, it's forbidden archaeology too. You're not even supposed to talk about some of these things. And here's that 100 million year old hammer found in Texas. Like I said, there is some argument about things. Here's a prehistoric work site that they think is something that people were doing a long time ago. It just goes on. A 1 million year old bridge. Plenty of literature in India that describes the building of this specific bridge.
Man, heaps.
And it makes you wonder when they were talking about nowadays. They call them monkeys and portray them as monkey men on art. But originally the word didn't mean that. It just meant forest man. So it was people from the forest that they got and hired to build this bridge. And I'm thinking, if this really goes back that far, we're talking about different hominids working together to build something in the remote past. I mean, think about that. 500-year-old spark plug. This one's kind of silly. Because it was actually a spark plug, but they can't figure out how it got in the rock. And then you got the prehistoric wall near the Bahamas.
Well, I dove on the Bimini Road way back when I was in high school.
So there's a lot of stuff like you were talking about. How long ago did they actually have AI? But I wanted to close out tonight's thing with
could I close something? Can I show you another quick map here?
Yeah, go for it. We'll get back to this.
Let me see. Model viewer.
Wrong button. Here we go.
Yeah, I got you.
We'll get to this.
Did you get it?
Yeah, there it is.
All right, so this is Antarctica right here, and if you look at the temperature chart, it's pegged down to the bottom of the chart, which right now, as we speak, in these next few days, they're anticipating that the Antarctic temperatures are going to be the coldest ever recorded ever since the 1800s in Antarctica.
Global warming.
Global warming, dude.
No.
But you can find this on, this is Ryan Maue. He runs the climate model site here.
The penguins are in for a rough time then.
Yeah, they are. Like, take a look at this one here. I mean, when you look at it, clear down here is where this anomaly is, and if you look at it, it's 100 degrees below zero right here. And when they were getting, it was right around 97 degrees was the all-time coldest record. But it looks like that might peg over 100 degrees below zero Fahrenheit, and we will know. And it's coming at 102 hours from now. So, and you're looking within a few days. And this was the anomalies. And I would encourage you to pop down and take a look at what is available here for these guys. They got free maps all over the place. If you're interested in Antarctica, this is the place for you. They got 2-meter surface temperatures. You can take it up in the atmosphere and. Anyway, since you were talking about, I was hoping I could find the end of where that end of the map of the Perry Reese map was coming off, but this comes off the peninsula here versus on the other side of where we were looking, where it drops down there. So anyway, that is it. I'll let you drop on back there.
All right.
Well, cut me out. Let me stop sharing. Oh, there you go. Freak is Lane. Yeah. Well, she didn't do anything. They didn't do anything, man. Why is she in jail? She was a woman. She was falsely accused. Never did anything. She's out.
Exactly, and that's kind of what I was going to point out here. I'm happy to start the Free the Jizz campaign. So this is the Free the Jizz, And because,
So,
and so
hey,
because,
family friendly YouTube. It's a family friendly
well,
advertiser show, YouTube.
well, that's her name. It's not my fault. No, but really, since they're not going to give us anything, right? You can expect the same type of treatment for all of the things. And remember, we had that show. They're not going to give you the secrets that you were hoping for. They're not going to tell you.
Never.
And was I right? They are not going to do that. So now I'm happy to, start this nationwide campaign of free the jizz, because if there were no Epstein files, there were no clients, then that lady's just sitting in jail for no reason then. So, I apologize to both Epstein and Ghislaine for my previous reporting on what I thought they were doing, like maybe a honeypot. But I guess they weren't doing nothing. So free the jizz. That's all I got.
That is going to be.
I've already started the hashtag on Twitter, so it's a thing.
I would have said happy 4th of July or happy Independence Day, but we're past that. We're happy Jizz Day. Oh, jeez.
I just thought that might catch on,
me, by
man.
the way, this guy's scaring me late at night. I'm terrified right now.
I'm kidding, though. Don't free the jizz. She's probably guilty.
Yeah, but take a look at some of those temperature charts and do your own research. Like everything we presented tonight is about doing your own research too, because media is going to try to gaslight a lot of these things moving forward, especially magnetic anomalies, temperature anomalies, snow anomalies, all these things. I try to present at least a couple so you can follow it, like NOAA Coral Reef Watch there, and then on weathermodels.com, Ryan Maue's site. So you can there's like a bunch of free maps on there. So you can get all types of weather maps, you can get temperature maps. In this day and age too, that article off of Zero Hedge, which really surprised me because that is such a business-driven site. For them to put that on there, I was like really shocked as to why they're sending a message for some reason. I don't know what it is or why it is, except that maybe we're about to discover something that's going to rewrite history. And that wouldn't surprise me, because if we do find something of such gigantic, of a find that would rewrite human history from the beginning, that would upset religion and the economy. And that would just play right into all the disturbances that were in play anyway, running up to this point that were forecast on this cycle that's repeating. So almost everything you're seeing here is just a cycle and a repeat. So, we get these ebbs and flows, these rise and falls of civilization through time. Like if you knew that time clock on a longer scale, multi-thousand-year cycles, you could wire it down into a certain system that would be valid for 200 to 500 years. Then it would kind of run its course, knowing that you, at the end of that, then you would be in a transition phase anyway into this cycle that had collapsed or at least reduced other civilizations in the past. And then restart. What do you say? Hit that restart button once again. And I'm sure we've gone through this many a time before. This is not the first rodeo that we're getting pinned into, but be careful and guard your Bitcoin carefully. Signing out, David Dubine. Thanks so much for joining us tonight with Ransom Godwin here. Please remember civilizationcycle.com. Join us there. Put in your email. We'll get you the show notes of the bullet points that we talked about tonight. And also buymeacoffee.com. If you like this type of content and want to keep us on air, please support our program. And we'll see you next week. Bye for now.